Hi, I am LaShawn Davis. I am the CEO and founder of the HR Plug. We are an HR consulting firm whose sole purpose is to offer genuine help and solutions for businesses and employees and entrepreneurs. And one of the problems that we've discovered is that HR professionals are tired from COVID and the social injustices and all the things that are happening in the workplace today. They are tired, and so our solution to that is the Unplug Experience 2022. The Unplug Experience is an opportunity for HR professionals who are burnt out, who need a community of other HR professionals to come together with, to find solutions and work together to tackle all that's coming in the workplace today, like the Great Resignation and the Great Reshuffle and people firing and hiring, those ever-evolving cycles. It is now time to take care of the people who take care of the people, and that's what the Unplug Conference is all about. It's taking place in Atlanta, Georgia on March the 30th through April the 1st. It is a 3-day hybrid experience, 2 days in person and 1 day virtual. It's a time where you will get 3 things. Number 1, an opportunity to unplug, an opportunity to disconnect from the workplace and really refuel, to get re-energized and re-engaged in what it means to be an HR professional today. It's an opportunity for you to disconnect so that you can rest and really take a step back to refuel yourself, because there's no way to be an impact for an organization if you yourself are unable to be impactful because you're tired. Number 2, there are going to be training and development opportunities where we're going to have industry leaders available to talk to us about how to rest, how to establish boundaries, how to be influential with your leadership to help them understand what it means to take care of employees in the future of work. There's going to be opportunities to take wellness seriously so that you can get a holistic perspective of how to balance your health with work. And finally, it's going to be an opportunity to be pampered. We are going to take care of you because HR professionals have been taking care of the people for so long, and now it's time for someone to take care of them. So if you know an HR professional, if you are an HR professional and you want to understand more about what this Unplug experience is all about, visit the website unplugconference.com. It will give you information. It'll give you opportunities to sign up. We have even established to have on-site lodging where you can stay right at the venue and have every need catered to for this event. There's also opportunities to sponsor if you're unable to make it, but you want to support an HR professional who you know needs this. Unplug, there's nothing else like it. Unplugconference.com will give you all the information, and I hope to see you there. Hello, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Plugged. So excited to be here. We have an amazing guest tonight, an amazing topic tonight, and I'm just excited to hear about what you guys are going to learn and what you're going to take away from tonight and apply, so that for your next opportunity, whether it's an internal position, an external position, whatever it is, you are representing yourself well and you are commanding what you are worth. And tonight we're going to talk about how you do that. And we have some questions that came in, but as usual and as normal, I want you guys to be engaging as well. So if you are watching, let us know that you are here. Say hello. Let us know where you are from. I see we have JP. Hello. Happy to catch you live. So happy that you're joining us tonight, JP. And we have Israth here. Hi, Israth. How are you? I am so excited that you are here for this episode. And it's so on time for you as a college student as well, because sooner or later you're going to be job searching, and this is going to be everything you'll need to know so that you can position yourself for success when that time comes. And we have Tracy. Hi, all the way from Atlanta. Hey, Tracy, thank you for joining. And welcome to the show tonight. And so let me just share with you guys before we jump into the topic a few announcements, but I promise I won't take long because we have a lot to cover tonight. First, reminding you about the Unplug conference. It is coming up March 30th through April the 1st. Make sure that if you are an HR professional, you are influencing and having your leader support you attend this event. It is so well overdue and so necessary for us as HR professionals to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of everyone else like we're expected to. Make sure that you visit unplugconference.com to learn more about this event. And if you have any questions concerning this event, be sure to send an email to hello@unplugconference.com as well. And a member of my team will be able to address any questions that you have. And I want to point out that our guest tonight is also one of the speakers at this conference. So you'll get a taste of her unapologetic sass that I love so much tonight. And if you are enjoying what you're going to see, you definitely want to make sure you are in the room at this conference. Also want to remind you guys, coming up this month, the Black Successful Creators event. That is a production of Content Creator University, JP High Tech. And I am honored to be speaking at this event. It is a series where he's going to be talking to some successful creators and allowing us to share some of our struggles, our trials, and our triumphs with you. So make sure that you tune in to this. It kicks off next week on his YouTube channel, JP Connect Reviews. And I am going to be talking on February the 15th. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll be talking about what it takes to step out in faith. And it takes a whole lot to do that when you are fulfilling the purpose that you were called to do. And so I'm going to be sharing my story. I'm going to be sharing sides of me that I don't normally share with folks, but it's important for me to help others understand this platform that I'm doing, how much faith it really takes for me to do what I've been called to do. So make sure you tune in February the 15th on the JP High Tech Reviews YouTube channel. Also want to remind you guys that I am on audio podcast avenues as well. So anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure that you tune into the HR Plug there. And if you're listening to us on the audio stream, thank you for doing that. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for being here. But if you have to hop off or miss something and you want to catch something else, make sure you go into your favorite place where you listen to audio podcasts and make sure you tune into the HR Plug there as well. And I also want to remind you that I am available for consultations. If you have a HR question, a problem as an employee or an employer, you can book a free consultation with me and we can work through navigating through your workplace challenge together. If you visit my website, www.thehrplug.com, it will allow you to book this free consultation and you can schedule your appointment and we can work together to make sure that you get what you need resolved, because that is why we do what we do. And my guests are just as passionate about teaching you guys the tools and the resources and providing the support that you need so that you can be successful and thrive in your careers, in the workplace, or any endeavors that you have. So that's the announcements for tonight. I want to tell you all about Kimberly Jones, who is our guest tonight. She is not only the CEO of Kelton Legends, she is also a talent acquisition superhero. And I will let her explain why she is a superhero, but I will tell you why she's my superhero. Just because there aren't many people in the HR space sometimes that have the confidence or the courage to stand up and teach you guys sometimes what the system doesn't want you to know. And I am like that, hence the HR Plug, and so is she, and that's why she is a talent acquisition superhero to me, and I can always depend on her to be upfront, open, and honest about anything. She is as raw and uncut as it gets. And that's what I love about her, because it is, all straight, no chaser with Kimberly. So On her profile, she even describes herself as someone who is not afraid to tell the truth about talent acquisition. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight on this episode. So let me see. I'm going to bring Kimberly in and allow her to tell her a little bit about about herself. And while I do that, I want to go ahead and acknowledge some of you guys that are in the room. Hello, Designer Me, Tia. Hi, Tia from Oklahoma. Thank you for joining. We have Leah online. Hi, Leah. Thank you for joining. Appreciate the love. And my fellow HR colleague, Carlene from Tampa. Hey, Carlene, thank you for joining. I am so excited that you are here because you too are an HR professional that has a lot of insight that you may want to share as well. We have Tia all the way from LA. Hi, Tia. Thank you for joining. And so let me, without further ado, allow Kim to introduce herself, the talent acquisition superhero herself. Hi, Kim. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much. I am excited to be here. So, as LaShawn mentioned, Kimberly Jones. I hold I will say I wear a lot of hats. So, I am still managing the organization that I founded, which is Kelton Legend. We're a talent acquisition consulting practice that includes talent acquisition strategy, process, resources, team dynamics. And one of the areas that we specialize in is HR technology. And so there aren't a lot of women in technology, certainly not a lot of Black women. And so I pride myself on being unique in this space that we partner with organizations to write RFPs, to manage vendors, to co-project manage implementation, and then also what I'll say we specialize in is the Frankenstein. When organizations have made a mess of the technology that they have in place, we help them figure out if it can be fixed or if they need to go back out to market. In addition to that, I am fortunate to I hold two roles at the University of California, Irvine. I've been an instructor with the university since 2017. I teach a course that's technology applications in talent management as part of a global HR certification program. And I'm also senior director for enterprise talent strategy for the entire university, which includes the main campus, our health sciences, and then also UCI Health, which is a hospital, and the ambulatory clinics. And so I tell people I grew up in talent acquisition. I started at Nationwide Insurance Company. I spent about 10 years in the aerospace industry. Left my last role in aerospace. I worked at NASA, started Kelton Legend, and then also kind of branched out to take some more risk and continue to evolve who I am. So I feel more than fortunate to be here with you to kind of add this to my career journey.
Wow, and we are fortunate to have you. Did y'all hear that resume? Wow, we are definitely just as fortunate for you to be here with us tonight, Kim. And you guys know, you guys heard the talent that is at your fingertips. So make sure you engage and you ask questions tonight that you have about if compensation, finding a job, interviewing for a job, whatever it is, this is your opportunity to not only ask, but get the real truth about what it is and how to do it in a way that benefits and is most suitable for you. And so, Kim, let me tell you, isn't it ironic that we have been planning this episode for quite some time? And I don't know how many of you watching follow, HR on social media, but this weekend there was this post that went viral. And I was like, Kim, can you believe this happened this weekend? We were just going to talk about this on Tuesday. So I want to give you guys some receipts, as my children say. I want to give you guys some receipts to show you and explain to you just how real this topic is and why it is so important for you to understand the advantage that you have by engaging with us tonight. And so this weekend, there was an HR professional, and I got this from an article that was released, and she tweeted or shared somehow on social media the following statement that I'm going to share for those listening through audio. So it says, I just offered a candidate $85,000 for a job that had a budget of $130,000. I offered her that because that's what she asked for. I personally don't have the bandwidth to give lessons on salary negotiation. Here's the lesson. Always ask for the salary you want. deserve, no matter how large you think it might be. You never know how much money a company has to work with. And while her last statement is very much true, this whole second paragraph about I offered her that's because of what she asked for is the problem that we face today in the HR community. And that is an HR professional who posted that. And it bothered me, it disturbed me, and it amped me up for tonight to talk about this, because this is why you need to make sure you have HR folks in your corner that are teaching you how to advocate for yourself. Because if you are depending only or solely on the HR person at the company you're trying to work for or at the company you work at, you could be setting yourself up not to be successful. So you have to learn the tools and jewels to teach yourself and advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself and know what you rightfully deserve. Kim, when you saw that, what was your thought process? What did you think?
Ooh, so a number of things. It solidified for me the article that I had been working on for the past couple months. Anybody who follows me on Facebook or on LinkedIn knows that prior to the holiday, I had shared two posts. One was advice to candidates. I started with candidates for a very intentional reason, but I also gave advice to my peer talent acquisition professionals. And so when I read this, it actually made me quite furious, because I understand that we as talent acquisition professionals sit at the intersection of connecting people with opportunities to help people pay their bills, take care of their family, go on vacation. And so I take a lot of pride in the fact that I do have that power. And for someone to misuse that trust and that authority in such a gross, disgusting way, it was not well intentioned in her sharing that post either. That really bothered me. Secondly, I thought about the candidate. How defeating might it have been for that person to learn through social media that she had been taken advantage of and been devalued? And so again, what I had started back in November and December, the article I had started working on, that I went ahead and published on Saturday, because I knew it was the right time to talk about. And what I want to be the voice that talks about killing this whole negotiation process. It solidified for me what I know. There are a lot of people in this space who don't have the heart to be recruiters, who give recruiters a bad name. And so I'm hopeful that this will also help talent acquisition leaders weed out or coach appropriately the people who have the power to really control or influence how other people really make a livelihood.
Yes, that is so true, because I thought about, we talk about the pay gap, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
inequities that exist, and recruiters and talent acquisition professionals are some of the people that could help,
Mm-hmm.
with that gap. And this is just an example sometimes of why it exists. And I'm a firm believer in not everybody has access or information to everything. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's why we are here to share some access and information tonight. And so, Kim, let's just start off about, if I'm applying for a job and I'm preparing for that interview, how do I prepare? Like, how should I be preparing to make sure that I'm applying for the right jobs and know who I am as a candidate?
Yeah, so your career search starts with you. Before you send a resume, before you create a resume, you have to take inventory into who you are as a candidate. And so, where we tend to, in your resume in chronological order, list education, list all your jobs. Before you even do that, take stock in who you are. I know a lot of people are into journaling. Have you sat down and actually taken the time to inventory who you are? Yes, what's your education? What credentials do you have? What education do you have? What professional experience? But what else is it about you that is notable that could prove to be useful in your career? Are you detail oriented? Are you a natural problem solver? Are you the person who helps to manage conflict? You need to make sure that you have taken stock into who you are, and in those times of self reflection, also give yourself space to solicit feedback. In a corporate environment, there's a process called 360. where you solicit feedback from people at different vantage points in your life. They're able to see things that you're not able to see about yourself. We have blind spots. We also don't like to admit that we have flaws. And so before you actually create a resume, make sure that you have created an inventory of all of the skill sets, competencies, passions that you have. So now when it's time to write your resume, you haven't taken for granted anything that you might really that you should amplify in your resume when your resume then actually goes out to an employer. So that's the very first step that people should take. But what I often see people do is, who can I pay to make my resume look good? Your resume is a reflection of you. Have you really documented all of the attributes that are notable, and have you best positioned them to make you the most, to help you be competitive in a competitive talent market?
Wow. So, journal, and we heard journal before on this show, but write down and categorize who you are. And that's so important because I remember interviewing for a job once and they asked me, what do people say about you that makes you,
Yes.
that makes you different or unique? And I had to think about that. Like, what do people say about me? I never asked. I never even
Hmm.
thought about it.
Hmm.
But I'm prepared to tell you why I should get this job, but I wasn't prepared to talk about me. And so,
Yes.
that is a key takeaway, Kim. We have to be in a position to recognize who we are, identify what that is and what that looks like, and be prepared to showcase that in the interview, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. And so, a lot of times what I see too is, people are completing these resumes and they're just throwing them out there blindly. Like, I just need a job. I don't care where it is or what it is. I just need a job. And what's your thoughts on that? Like, should resumes be tailored to specific types of industries or types of fields, or, is it okay to be general with it as long as I'm not going too specific?
Yeah, so I will say, in the time that I've been in this industry, I've always heard, people talk about, tailor your resume. And let me just be honest, most people don't have the bandwidth or the time to come up with seven different versions of their resume. I'm realistic about that. Your resume. So, for example, I'm a talent acquisition professional. I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not a cook. I'm not a fashion model. So I wouldn't have those four different versions of my resume. I am a talent acquisition leader. And in doing so, if I apply for a position, I'm applying for things that sit very solidly in my wheelhouse. It wouldn't require me necessarily to come up with a different version of my resume. A couple things about your resume speaks for you when you're not in the room. And when I think about the number of organizations that I worked for, especially because they were large organizations, they had a very notable employment brand. It was not uncommon for me to have requisitions where 50 people or 200 people applied. And so where you don't have the benefit of being in the room or on the screen with that recruiter, what does your resume say about you? It's your voice. It is your ticket. And has it been positioned? Now, I know a lot of people get caught up into cosmetics. I tend to be a recruiter who is more focused on content. But what does your resume actually say about you? The second piece of your question is, do you cast a wide net? And I was just reading right before we got online, I looked at a number of people who were celebrating, I finally got a job, and they listed, after 400 Indeed applications, after 200 LinkedIn applications. And one of the things that I talked about and what I shared back in November, some people are so desperate to hear from anybody, they will talk to everybody. You have frustrated yourself because you have not focused your career search on industries or organizations that really are best aligned with your career goals. You shouldn't really need to apply for 400 positions. And so, if you did, and now you have suffered through 399 rejections, that was some self inflicted career pain that was unnecessary. And so I'm never one to promote just send your resume everywhere. No, use your time wisely, be strategic, and not just the number of positions. I've also seen here lately, apply for the positions that you're qualified for. Yes, apply for the positions you were qualified for because you want to be competitive. And God forbid you be offered a position that you don't have the capability to perform. Again, you're setting yourself up for failure. And so I tend to provide people the advice that says, what industries do you want to work for? What organizations do you want to work for and why? Focus on those because in addition to applying, also building out your network of people who work there or people who are prepared to advocate on your behalf as a candidate will be really important for you as well.
Networking. Yes, that is key because if you're not in a circle of people that you can network with or put on a job application, you may need to reevaluate your circle of people because you need to be connecting yourself with people who can help elevate you or who are where you're trying to be. And so your network sometimes determines your net worth. And I say that a lot because you are the people and the company that you keep. So good, good, good stuff, Kim. And we have a question. So let me go over here to this
Mhm.
question really quickly. So, Kim, we have a question here. It says, nice to virtually meet you tonight. Would love to hear your
Yep.
thoughts on what some may consider controversial. Specifically, do you recommend job seekers share their vaccination status on resumes?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Okay.
not. So let me give you this answer from a couple different vantage points. I have asthma. I am deathly afraid of contracting COVID because I have two boxers. My boxers are not nurses, and if I get sick, I am very fearful of what COVID might cause for me. I also work for a university that has a hospital, and we have a vaccination policy. Last year, I was fortunate enough to be asked to be one of the directors for our COVID vaccine clinic. We understand that for a lot of organizations, it is a condition of employment. But to the extent that you are sharing that information on your resume, absolutely not, because it's a condition of employment. Let employers consider you based on the merits of your education and your professional experience. If those employers have policies around vaccination, and not just specific to COVID, there might be other conditions of employment. Let the process play itself out. It doesn't necessarily make you more marketable. Again, it's a condition of employment and it'll be discussed in the process when it's the appropriate time to have that discussion.
Right. Definitely good call. Because a lot of people are so apprehensive. Like, I don't know if I should tell them or if I shouldn't. I don't want to, risk not getting the job. But, remember, Kimberly said, the resume speaks before you get in the room. What do you want? Do you need people to know that about you before they meet you? And that's what you kind of want to think about when you're deciding what to put on your resume. But that is
Yes.
a great question, especially for now. And again, guys, if you guys have questions, just drop them in the chat, drop them in the comments, and we will, get to them. So, wow. So, answering and asking questions in the interview. How many times have you interviewed candidates, Kim, and they have these we always say prepare for the interview, right? But it doesn't mean just prepare with the questions you practice with. You got to be ready to answer the questions that they ask. So, what are some tips or what is your whole thought process behind that piece?
Yeah, so a couple things, advice that I share with candidates, but advice that I also share within my organization. Interviews aren't just about the company selecting the candidate, it's also about the candidate selecting the company. So those questions have to be well thought out. You don't want to go someplace that you haven't taken the time to really appropriately vet. Is this the right place for me to go? And so, yes, be prepared for what you believe are the standard interview questions. One of the pieces of advice that I give candidates is if you and you should save the job posting that you apply to. Anticipate that they are going to ask you questions based on what was in the job posting. So if the job posting says must be able to, manage projects, expect that there's a question. There will be a question that says, "Tell me about a time when you managed a project." Make sure that you have in your recent memory and are able to quickly provide a credible example what you did, how you worked your way through it, and what the outcomes were. It's really important to give a complete response and not just an answer because you want to make sure you give them something to kind of noodle on after the interview as they're evaluating you. On the flip side of that, and I am an interviewer who writes down the questions that the candidate asked me, because when I now go into my debrief, that's part of how I create a profile. How insightful was this person? How inquisitive were they? How related? How comprehensive were the candidates' questions? Because that gives me some insight into how they might be as part of our team. And so today we were debriefing about internship candidates, and one of the managers talked about a question that really made an impact. A candidate said, based on what you see in my resume, how do you see me contributing to the success of your team? The manager was very impressed with that question. And so, especially for an early career. So making sure that you have established a set of questions that help you make your own decision. Let me give you this analogy and then I'll pause. The same way we go on Yelp to figure out where we're going to eat dinner and what was a 5-star or a 4-star, I want you to give that same level of interest to the questions you ask in your interview as you deciding which restaurant are we going to for dinner tonight.
Yes. It's that serious.
It
This is your
is.
livelihood. This is your livelihood. And it's what leads to that I touched on this before and I won't harp on it, but people keep talking about normalized job hopping. If you do this process right that Kim is teaching us tonight, you don't have to worry about job hopping because you've made an informed decision. You know where you work, you know what you're going to get paid, and you know what's available for you down the future because you're asking these the right questions. So that right there, I think, is so key. Are you asking questions at the end of your interview, and are you asking the right ones?
So let me give you my go-to question. I'm about to put y'all up on game.
Okay.
Put this question in your repertoire of questions. If you're an early career person, if you're a mid-career person, and you are now about to entrust the remainder of your career to someone, ask the leader this question. What have you learned about yourself as a leader based on feedback from your team?
Wow.
Let me repeat it. Let me repeat it. What have you learned about your leadership style based on feedback from your team? Let me tell you why this question is important. First of all, as a leader, have you even been open to feedback from your team? Secondly, have you taken that feedback to heart to modify who you are or reinforce that you are a good leader? You don't want to go anywhere and sit under somebody's organization and not have confidence that that person is a good leader.
Wow, wow, wow. I was writing down the question myself because I'm gonna post this because what have you
Add it.
learned about your leadership style based on feedback from your team? Because if they
Yes,
can't answer that, look, they're quick to ask you, what's your weakness? What is an area you can improve on?
yes, yes, yes.
Whew, that's a good one. That is a really good
And
one
I'm
because
just gonna
not.
say amen myself. That listen, that question is useful. That
Yes,
question is, I dare you, anybody who's in the job market, I dare you to add that question to your list of questions and then decide whether or not this is really an opportunity that I want to pursue.
absolutely. Because that question could also tell you if you're about to deal with a toxic leader. That question is
Yes,
that question will give you so much insight about the person that you about to
yes,
spend the majority of your day with 5 days a week.
yes,
So
yes,
interview them just as much as they're interviewing you. What the things
yes,
that are important to you in a
absolutely,
leader, make sure you ask them the questions that will give
absolutely,
you that information. Wow, that's a
absolutely.
good one. That is a really, really good one. So, you ready to talk about negotiations?
Yes, I am. I'm ready.
So
I'm ready.
negotiations is one of the biggest topics, and so there's two ways I want to talk about it. So one, we got a question in, and the question was, when I'm preparing for negotiation, do I ask the interviewer or the recruiter that I'm speaking with, what's your budget for the role? Do I ask them do I share what the market is for the role? Like, how do I establish what that dollar amount is that I'm even negotiating to begin with? So that is the question that we had. And then I also want you, if you can, to just touch on your philosophy when it comes to negotiating and how to handle that.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer them in reverse because I want to build up a foundation and then be able
Sure.
to talk about that specific question. So, I will say in the past year, I have started in a very deliberate way refraining from using the word negotiation because the process and the concept has been bastardized in such a detrimental way. And it doesn't fit into who organizations or the market says we are when we're talking about talent. We do all of this stuff in these fancy job postings and courting candidates and interviews and candidate experience. And then we get to the offer negotiation stage, and we automatically become adversaries of each other for 48 hours because nobody wants to be honest or transparent at the risk of being taken advantage of. How did we get from I love you, I love your resume to but I don't know if you're really who you say you are, and I don't know if I want to open up my whole purse for you? Or as a candidate, you ask, well, I don't want them to lowball me. And I always respond when people reach out to me and ask me for advice. My response to this always is, why do you want to work for an organization that you think would lowball you? If they do it now, what do you think they're going to do once you get locked into a framework of common effective dates and salaries and define budgets? And so for me, it's all about transparency, information, and education. Lately, what we have seen is the cute little hashtag, put the salary in the job posting. And every time I've seen it, I want to throw my laptop because I'm like, y'all are so shallow because you're not even having the whole conversation. Salary is part of total compensation. And I'm sorry, I'm so passionate about this. So let me slow down to make
Preach.
sure I don't miss anything. So, salary is part of total compensation. You have your salary, whether or not you're non exempt or exempt. You have vacation, you have sick, you have benefits, whether they're offered, what the employer versus employee contribution is. Do you have a traditional pension? Do you have 401k? Do you have tuition assistance? There are so many pieces to a total compensation. And we miss out on things that have a financial value because we get so focused on, let me out negotiate. Let me see if I can out negotiate this company. So the reason why I say I don't want to use the word negotiate because I want to focus on communicate. If you communicate, you don't have to negotiate. I know that there are career coaches, maybe in this group, who might even see this later and they're going to think she doesn't know what she's talking about. I do. And I dare you to have a conversation with me about it. If you communicate, you don't have to negotiate. Companies, put the total compensation package, all of the information in the job posting. When the recruiter and the candidate get on the phone for the phone screen, don't first ask, tell me about your salary expectations. Lead that part of the discussion with, let's go back and revisit what we shared in the job posting, because people are more willing to have a conversation with things that they know versus the timidness of, is it right for me to bring this up right now? Let me give you one of the areas, sign-on bonuses. A sign-on bonus is typically used for one of two things: to incentivize an offer or to make a candidate whole. Maybe the company has gone as far as they can go in the annual salary. They really want you to come, but we're really at our budget. We can't create this inequity with the team. But to prove to you that we really are committed, we're going to give you a sign-on bonus. Or you are leaving a company before a bonus would be paid out and you don't want to leave that money on the table. A company may say, okay, if you're going to miss your bonus and you can provide proof, we will give you that as your sign-on bonus. Or say, for instance, you have a relocation repayment agreement, or they provided me with tuition assistance, and if I leave before a certain date, I have to pay that money back. They might offer you that in a sign-on bonus. Have those conversations up front, because we know for companies that you can trust, you know what you're actually dealing with. I also, as a matter of practice, after I know I've shared first and then I've asked the candidate more about what their salary expectations are, I make sure I ask candidates, are you prepared to tell me what you will say yes to? Not because I'm trying to lock them in and never give them what they're worth. I want to know, you really tell me what you will say yes to, because if you are the chosen candidate, I want to make quick work of that time from your interview to offer, to put an offer in your hand, because I don't want you sitting out on the market for somebody else to come and swoop you up. So now, when it comes to the discussion, every organization is a little bit different. Sometimes the recruiter is really leading the conversation, sometimes compensation, sometimes the HR business partner, sometimes the manager. Again, you have to understand who's leading the discussion, but be transparent, not because you think this is a game, but because you are confident about your worth in two areas. I understand the scope of the role and I know what I bring to the table. Am I coming in still as a novice? Am I coming in and I can hit the ground running, part of this peer group? Or am I coming in like, no, I brought a skill set with me that nobody else has. I believe I should be at the top of the range. So let me add one more thing, and then I'm going to pause because I see the chat window. Well, give you two things. One, if you join a company and you haven't asked them where they are in their common effective date, like their annual increase cycle, make sure you're asking that question. Because sometimes if you would end up going a longer period of time before you got an increase, they may go ahead and front load that in your annual salary, so you don't have to go so long without an increase. And so they'll bring you in where you really should be. LaShawn, the question you asked about, I think it was an internal person who was,
Yep,
is
it's
she internal
actually,
or?
well, actually, somebody
Go
else
ahead.
just asked it in the chat as well.
Okay.
Love to hear about how to navigate internal promotions.
Yes. So a lot of people get fixated on, if I'm moving into a promotion, I should get a 6% increase or 8% increase. That's not how it should work. What you should be more focused on is getting to the number that most appropriately compensates you for the work that you will be doing and what you bring to the table. So say for instance, you were really low in the range that you were in, and now you're moving to a new range. Even though there's overlap, it might take 14% to get you to $152,000. But if you were high in the range, it may only take you 4% to get you to where you should be the most focused on the number, the annual salary, the hourly rate that really appropriately compensates you for what you bring to the table and what the scope of the role is. And again, this doesn't have to be adversarial. This simply can be a question of, can you tell me how this process typically works when you are determining how to extend, where you will end up with compensation, either for external candidate or for internal candidate. If you ask the question, they are obligated to give you the answer. It's not because they're giving away secrets. You just want to know how the process works so that we can be cooperative throughout this process and get to yes or no in a timely fashion. I won't say quick, but in a timely fashion. So let me pause there because I shared a lot. Let me see what questions you have, and let's see what questions we can answer from the chat.
Wow, I mean, you dropped a lot of jewels here, Kim. I mean, what resonates with me most is you have to know what you want. When you walk in, do you know what you will say yes to? That's the bottom
Yes.
line. Because it's not a guessing game. Well, let me see how much I can get. No, what do you want to make, and be well with that. So, yeah, we did have some questions. So, internal promotions we touched on. I mean, people are saying they taking notes. I would encourage everybody, go ahead and get some paper and a pen and take some notes here because there's going to be a lot shared. Total compensation is where it's at. That is so true, Kim. It's not just about the salary. I just want to reiterate that point because sometimes, for real, companies have this thing called a budget. And for real, they may not be able to move or budge in that salary budget, but that total compensation budget, it looks a little bit different. But if you don't ask the questions or come prepared with that information or knowledge, you could be missing out on a perfect job opportunity because you were stuck or fixated on that bottom line salary. So we have a question here. It segues a little bit, but someone is asking, any suggestions on how I can best transition from being a contingent or a temporary employee because I want to move to full-time permanent employment?
Yeah. So again, every company, every industry kind of has a different strategy. There are some organizations who they utilize their contingent workforce as a try it before you buy it. You have others where the contingent workforce really is about, hey, we just need to augment our current staff. It could be people come in because they offer a specialization that's needed for some, kind of, finite period of time. It might be surge. When you think about the retail industry, Target, Macy's, they hire extra people because there's a surge. And so making sure that you know what that organization's really talent strategy is it a try it before you buy it? Or is it, hey, you're here because we have, kind of unique, discrete need? Well, while you're there, take advantage of understanding that organization. What's their culture about? Which positions are most often open? What's it look like for career development and career advancement? What does the interview process look like? So in the time that you are there, you can be your own secret shopper for your career to really understand what that environment is like. And we mentioned like networking, the power of networking. And let me be really clear when I talk about networking. This is not about hookup. This is about someone who is prepared to advocate on your behalf. I just got a phone call a couple days ago, a recruiter that previously worked on my team. Is it okay? I listed you as a reference. I said, Maggie, absolutely. I missed a call from the director yesterday. I called him today. I felt like he probably had a set of questions, but he opened up with, tell me, what can you tell me about this person? Well, because she had been so awesome, all he needed was one question. I told him about her being the best candidate in her interview, how she established a rapport with the hiring managers immediately. She was a trusted resource with her peers. She was trusted with the candidates. She took the initiative to redefine new employee orientation, especially because we had candidates who were English and Spanish speakers. He asked me one question. I gave him 6 things about her. And he said, wow, you answered all my questions. Thank you. I know he's going to proceed with his offer. That's not hookup, that's advocacy. So while you are at an organization and you are meeting people, make sure that your work positions you for people to speak positively about you if someone asks about you.
Yes. Wow. So, Miss, so Tia, to touch on that question, while you're in that temporary assignment, make the best of it. Build your network. Get
Yes.
some leaders that are working with you to be able to vouch for you, whether it's staying there or going somewhere else. But I think one of the things that I never thought of until you just mentioned it tonight, Kim, is if you're in a contingent work situation or temporary work, find out about the assignment you're going to. Is it because it's peak season and they just need some support, or is it a try it before you buy it type of situation? Because that will tell you then how to navigate and maneuver while you're there. If you know it's only peak season and and this isn't going to be long term, then you pick up every skill set that you can. You make every network that you can with meaningful people so that when you go to your next assignment, you're building your circle. And if it's a try it
Yes.
before you buy it, then you excel at it. So they have no choice but to say you're on
Yes.
permanently.
Absolutely.
So great, great, great stuff. We have another question here. We have, a lot of compliments out here, Kim. Gloria says this is a lot of great information. Anissa, how are you? She says, don't be afraid to ask what you want. I have gained a lot by simply making an employer aware of my expectations and my needs. Communicate clearly. That is so true, Anissa. What are your expectations? Please don't settle, because that's something that I did when I was so eager to get into a company. Oh, it's them. I would settle. No shame because of the name of where I just want to get my foot in the door. Then when you get in your foot in the door, you don't know how to negotiate for internally. You don't know any of that because you threw all that out the window when you told them people you would take $20,000 less likely than what you should have asked for. Um,
Yeah.
so it's so important that you know yourself, like Kim said earlier, but also know what expectations you seek from your potential employer. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Can
uh,
we can we
uh-huh.
take this question from Tiara that I see
Yeah.
in the chat?
Here we go.
Okay.
So I wish I knew this 3 years ago. I know I left money on the table. Absolutely. So Tiara asked for any suggestions about negotiating benefits aside from, salary, like increased PTO time or student loan assistance. What are your thoughts, Kim?
Yeah, so let me take the student loan assistance first. In the past couple of years, because student loan debt is such a burden, just across our country. I recall President Obama and First Lady Obama, shortly after he was nominated, he talked about the fact that he and Michelle had just recently paid off their student loans from law school. And so, like, man, you about to be you in charge of the whole world, and you still paying off student loans. So, a lot of organizations have created in their benefit structure assistance for people so that you're not taking it out of your regular disposable income. And so, I applaud those organizations who have done that. I caution people that if you're going to work for an organization and that is something that's important to you, that you tie it really to a business need. Is this something that is part of your compensation philosophy to help offset those who are still carrying student loan debt? Knowing that my education really has better prepared me to be here to be an attribute to your company. So make sure you are rooting that in a business need. The second piece is about increased PTO. Now, what you have the leverage to negotiate as an individual contributor versus someone in a leadership role, there's a huge difference. I will say the average, kind of line staff really doesn't have leverage to say, I would like, 5 or 10 more vacation days. But if you're a mid career professional who might be leaving from somewhere and you have accumulated 20 days and the company that you're going to, everybody starts out at 10, you may be able to leverage that. Now, it may never actually be coded into their HRIS system. It may be a situation where the manager says, yep, when you go to take these additional days, we're just going to approve it as paid leave. And so you have to understand big or small companies, how formal they are, how structured their systems are in place. Now, director, VP level, it is not uncommon for people, again, because these are mid-career, these are people who have left things on the table, who bring a body of knowledge and life experiences with them. They tend to be much better positioned to ask for things that are outside of the regular hard coded based on your employee profile. Here's what you can have. I would tell you, make sure you're asking questions early in the process. Remember, I said total compensation. Ask the recruiter everything. What's included in your total compensation? This opens up the door to questions like, oh, I believe I heard you say until you're in your second year, you only have 10 days. Is that something that can be considered? Because the company that I'm at, I currently have 20. Recruiter not in a position to approve it, but you've put it out there for discussion now becomes a situation of the hiring manager. Maybe the hiring manager just has the flexibility to say, yes, when you take your extra 2 weeks, I'll just approve your time card and it'll be approved as paid leave. So be smart about when you ask for it and be flexible. If they say no, or maybe, or we might be able to meet you halfway, be prepared. Whatever question you ask, you have to be prepared for whatever that answer is.
Yes, yes, that is so true and such great advice. And Tiara, thank you for asking that question. And
Awesome question.
I'll give a few minutes if anybody else has any questions to drop in the chat. To do that. And while we wait for that, Kim, and I want to give you an opportunity to just share. Is there anything else that you would like to share with anybody that is in a position where maybe they're not happy with their compensation right now, or felt like, man, I made a mistake. Is it too late for me? And maybe we do another show about advocating for like a pay increase when you're already there. But what advice or guidance could you provide to anybody that might be sitting there thinking, I really messed up, or I want to make sure I'm prepared when I go in for this interview?
Yeah. So I think the first question that you have to ask is this a place where I want to stay? If this is not a place where you feel like you will be valued, that there's longevity for you, I would tell you don't burn the time or the energy having conversations if this is a place that you've decided, like, you know what, this isn't for me. I would say take the wisdom and start your career search over. But if this is a place that you know, believe like, man, like I missed an opportunity, you have to be prepared to be honest and vulnerable, to sit down with whoever the right person is. It might be the your actual manager, it might be the HR person. And here's the thing I'm going to caution you about. I know it seems like the right thing to do, but I do want to caution you. People will sometimes say, I found out so and so is making more money than me, and so I want to ask for more money. And my question always is, but if you didn't know that that other person was making more money, is that still the amount of money that you want to make? So any discussion that you have about compensation, make sure it is based on facts and not the emotion. Here's what the scope of this role is. Here's what I bring to the table. Here's how I performed in the interview. As I'm looking at our salary data, what I see in the market, I appear to be being paid $10,000, $5,000, $7,000 less than where I really should be. Help me understand how we got to where we are. And let's talk about the door being open to make an appropriate adjustment. Let me also say this. When there's a budget cycle, departments have money that's allocated to them. But as long as your C-suite is getting a paycheck and getting a bonus, there's money somewhere that can be moved around.
Very true.
Let me just tell you that. So minus the emotion, be prepared to have a conversation that might be uncomfortable. But if you believe that you are not being compensated accurately or fairly, have it. Let me give you this quote too. Confidence rooted in capability is undeniable.
Oh, say that again.
Yes. Confidence rooted in capability is undeniable.
I mean, that right there sums that up, that right up, because,
Mhm.
you know, what you're saying is so true. You have to take the emotion out. And what happens a lot, because it happened to me, is you agree to a position and then your abilities or capabilities exceed that. And then your plate somehow gets full with stuff that you didn't think you would be doing, right? But now I have the ability to do, so they give it to me to do. All you're saying is, I just got to be able to show that. I just got to be
Yes,
able to show,
absolutely.
hey, this is where
Absolutely.
we talked. I started, right? And here's what I'm doing now. Let's look at this and see if this is actually right or should be there. So it's taking the emotion out, not being mad about it or what have you, but and just being strategic and smart and doing it.
You can be passionate, but don't show up mad. The mad will distract you, and it will dilute the validity of your. You want to make data driven business decisions. That company is going to do the same. Make sure you show up with facts. And I want to asterisk say, get it in writing. Absolutely. Um, if your offer of employment has been modified, you need an offer letter or an email, because you need receipts. Receipts are important. What if that manager leaves a month after you get there? What if that HR person is no longer there? You got to make sure you have it in writing, because it's now a contract, an employment contract, a legally binding employment contract. Make sure you keep your receipts.
Yes, yes. Wow, Kim. So we have a lot of thank yous out here. Tiara says, thank you so much for the advice. Tia says, thank you. Tracy says, preach. I mean, we have had an amazing episode tonight, and we hope y'all learned something, and you're going to walk away with something, because I even learned some stuff that I'm going to take away and share with the people who in the future ask me questions. But I also want you all to know that Kim is on LinkedIn. So if you are on LinkedIn, make sure you connect with her. Here is her LinkedIn profile. It's Kimberly Jones, and she'll accept you. Just let her know, hey, I saw you on the podcast, and I just want to follow you and see what you're commenting on, because listen, she does give some great advice. She does some great posts. She writes some great articles. And so I'm connected to her and I follow her and everything. So make sure we talked about that network. We talked about who's in your circle. Is it people that are uplifting you, that are educating you, that are teaching you, right? Go ahead and connect with her and learn some things about navigating through this thing that we call work. So I want to invite you guys to connect with her there. And I just want to say her LinkedIn again for those listening is Kimberly Jones, PHRPNP, and it says Chief Executive Officer, Talent Acquisition Superhero, speaking the truth about talent acquisition. And we are just delighted that Kim, you joined us tonight. Everybody said, amazing session. Gloria says, thanks, LaShawn and Kim, loads of knowledge. And I am humble and humbly grateful. And we have to do this again. I think we need to do this again because there was some great, insightful tips shared. And so I'm going to go ahead and send you backstage, Kim, as I wrap this up for tonight. And she says, bye, everybody. So you guys, this was such a great episode, and I'm just so glad and honored that we were able to get Kim in the room to be able to open up and share some real hard truths about things that we need to know. So remember, get your journal. Write everything that's wonderful and fabulous about you. What makes you great? What makes you valuable? What makes you an asset to the company instead of an expendable person to the company? You want to identify those things. You also want to write down what's going to make you say yes and be prepared to accept it if they meet that. Know your number, total compensation, not just salary. Research what the total compensation is. Ask about it, communicate, because when you communicate, you don't have to negotiate. There is an expectation and a standard that has already been set, already communicated before you dive deeper into the situation. So also ask questions in your interview when you're with your interviewer. Ask them questions. And the question Kim shared, what have you learned about your leadership style based on the feedback that you've received from your team? Watch how they answer that, and that will let you know if you're going to work with or for someone who is open to receiving feedback and real honest and true with who they are. So connect with Kim if you haven't. And if you haven't already done so and you enjoyed this show, please subscribe. Subscribe so that you are notified the next time we go live, which will be next Wednesday. But just so you don't forget, subscribe so you get that notification and can join us for another episode of Let's Get Plugged. So tonight has been amazing. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your engagement, and I will see you next Wednesday. Good night.